Welcome back. My name is Matt Reiners, and I'm the co-founder of Eversound, which was acquired by Uniguest, a company committed to developing engagement technologies to help communities connect and improve the quality of life for older adults. Today, I'm joined by Katie Churchill, the managing partner of Full Spectrum Search Group. Katie spent some time on the provider side as an activity and life enhancement coordinator, community relations director, a sales specialist, regional sales and marketing director. And Katie has been at Full Spectrum for the last 3.5 years and has worked her way up and has been Diamond Club and Pacesetter Qualifier for each of the last 3 years and is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to everything senior living recruitment. So thanks for joining me today, Katie.
Thank you so much for having me.
So always my first question, Katie, with any guest is, can you just share a little bit about your background and how you got into senior living?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, when I was 12 years old, I started calling bingo for a local community in my hometown, and I instantly got hooked. I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life is work in senior living. So quickly went to school, college at Chico State for that, and then studied health administration and gerontology. I did life enrichment for a little bit while going to school and then joined into sales and marketing. And I've loved it ever since.
The power of bingo. I love that. Yeah, really able
It was
there. Yeah, yeah, helping people to determine entire careers. I love that.
fun. Yeah, at 12.
At 12. Wow. Yeah, that is amazing. Um, so one of the places I want to spend some time with you here, Katie, and I know a lot of our listeners will get some value out of it's when we're thinking about like senior living recruiting, right? And I'm curious what trends you're currently seeing in this, and especially for the C-suite and executive level positions.
Yeah. So I would say mostly for C-suite executive level, what I would at least consider executive level would be really, regional and above, pretty much. For those positions, we don't really see a whole lot of them coming on our desks as much, just because really there's really fewer of them. We're seeing a lot more changes within executive director, sales director, clinical leaders, that kind of stuff. But for the C-suite and executive level positions, we are learning there's a lot more, at least promotion from within, or, being prepared to get promoted from within. And I think that is a beautiful thing. And I love that there are so many different career growth ladders that they have for our operators, for those people that want that growth.
Yeah, makes sense, right? I mean, I think any good culture is trying to promote from within and really help filling those spots with people. And it makes sense with some of those gaps and towards the executive director or sales director, whether those people are moving up or, whatever, because there's only one place there, and that's, to go up or stay in that role, of course, too. And
Yeah.
I'm would guess too, with like your background, you've probably have seen great leaders and poor leaders. And I'm wondering, can you just discuss some of the qualities that you believe make a successful leader in the senior living sector, especially when we think about this executive role, which is C-suite, VP, and the regional?
Yeah, I'd say longevity. We look at, are you jumping from position to position? Are you chasing the dollar or are you chasing the vision of the company? That's really big for us, that at least we look into. The other thing I would say is candidates that can actually speak to their success and accomplishments. If I ask you, what does your conversion look like for your team and you're running, a sales portfolio, sales region, and you can't really talk about those numbers or specifics, that definitely makes it harder. So if you are interviewing, at least, study up on yourself and be prepared to speak to your accomplishments and how you've grown the company or the team, or at least been, successful in strategizing for growth.
Yeah, it's great to have some of that quantitative data associated with that too. I feel like in the interviews, a lot of people get lost in the sauce of storytelling, but kind of coming in with what you're able to actually achieve and putting some numbers and speaking confidently to that definitely can help showcase. Because if you're hiring for that role, you would guess that you would want them to have that level of focus too in their new role.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And
Mhm.
so I know you have some sales and marketing experience from the provider side, and now you're helping to fill some of those roles. And just wondering, you had mentioned in the last question about, that attention to the data and really speaking to that, but I'm wondering if there's any specific traits and or characteristics you look for when trying to fill these roles.
Yeah, I like to talk to candidates about really what their future, what they want for their future. We are in the business of matchmaking. Okay, so if a candidate is telling me that they want a really small boutique operator and my client has 100 plus buildings, that's not a good match, you know? So we're more really digging into with our clients as well as our candidates of what each other wants to make sure that it makes sense. And for me, if the story doesn't make sense, if I can't find qualities for the candidate that would align with the operator, I'm not going to make the introduction. I don't want to waste an operator's time of, interview this person just because, and I certainly don't want to waste the candidate's time. So when we're talking to both of them equally, it's understanding what is the vision or the future for that company and how can this person play a pivotal, piece of that puzzle to grow the operation.
Yeah.
So other things, like speaking to the numbers, right? So critical to know your data, to know your own stuff and what really, you've been successful in accomplishing so far in your career. But then also too, your leadership. How is your team behaving underneath you? And what does your turnover look like for that? Have you been successful in promoting maybe a couple of individuals to be specialists or regionals or whatever that might look like? And the longevity piece too. I think we're in an industry that sales especially changes over very frequently. I think last time I did the data, it was 19 months on average for a sales director, and for an executive director, a little over 2.5 years. And so, you know, how you have stayed in a position for so long, how you have grown in that position for so long is really critical to understand when you go then to interview.
Yeah, makes sense. And wow, it's pretty telling to hear that, especially, over the course of 10 years, right? How many times that position could kind of turn over with these varying levels of expectations. Um, and I'm curious what advice, because I think
Yeah.
there's a really big opportunity to bring people from outside the industry in. Granted, I don't think a lot of people know about that. I mean, you knew when you were 12. I learned, I was kind of slapped in the face with it when I was 26. But there's definitely people like looking at it. And I'm curious what advice you would give to individuals looking to enter the senior living industry, particularly those interested in sales, marketing, or leadership roles.
Yeah. We've talked to actually a lot of individuals from hospitality, even real estate agents as of lately, right? I mean, real estate market is kind of chaotic right now. So um, we've talked to a lot of candidates from those two individual fields, if you will, or industries to bring into sales. And it's worked. We have a candidate that is just absolutely thriving in the Bay Area, loves what she's doing. Definitely a change, right, for her, but she's loving it and was in real estate before. And so my advice would be is if you're really looking to get into the industry, start networking and having those conversations. I'm happy to have them. But start networking of, hey, this is what I do. And I want to see if there's a way for me to kind of get in and get some support and see if this is going to work for me. I would say networking is probably the biggest thing within senior living. You've got to know the companies, you've got to know the people at the companies and the operators. And that's just not networking with recruiters, but regional sales directors or other sales specialists of how did you get into this industry and how, can we just have a conversation? I think I look back to when I reached out to you a couple of years ago, and I'm like, Matt, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do with branding and marketing and things like that. And you're like, I'm an open book. Let's have the conversation. And I think that just putting yourself out there, while it seems really scary and making a new friend, it's definitely worth it.
I love that. And yeah, I do vaguely recall that. And it sounds like hopefully I gave some good advice. It's definitely worth what you
You
paid for
did.
it, which was nothing. So
Yeah,
it's
it was free
yeah,
99.
yeah, yeah, free 99, my favorite kind of deal. Um
Yeah.
and so yeah, it makes sense, right? Like I think I don't know who said this. I definitely did not come up with it, but like your network is your net worth, and really trying to identify like those people that are in your network and understanding what that can actually look like, and what value they can bring, what they've learned. Again, I believe life's an open book test. So, reaching out to those whose position you want to be in and kind of picking their brain, getting them virtual coffee, all the fun stuff there. Um, and so
Yeah.
you had mentioned, kind of looking at the hospitality side, the real estate side, so it sounds like there's some good buckets or pools to like at least try and like recruit from. But I'm wondering, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges our industry faces recruiting for senior living roles? And really, how do we overcome these obstacles?
Yeah, I would say, one of the biggest challenges that I'm finding is, you know, at least from the client side, is, we've interviewed maybe everybody in our local market. We, don't really have an interest in hiring those kind of candidates. Okay, so then how are we going to relocate somebody? Or are we open to looking at other verticals of long-term care? Right, we've got home health and hospice and skilled nursing. And what can that look like for this specific position? Executive director roles are definitely a little bit more difficult because you need to have the license and the knowledge of the regulation, at least for your state. And some operators are like, we can teach that. We'll pay them to get licensed. But as long as they're a really exceptional leader that can provide for their team, right, leadership qualities, then we're ready to do that. So I think there's a little bit of, we got to start thinking out of the box if we're not really interested in the hyper local talent, I guess. And then also, um, recruiting from out of the industry can be difficult because salaries are very different. Bonus plans are very different. And so it's making sure it can make sense for the candidate, for their family, for their life, and then also making sure it makes sense financially for the operator as well. I would say those are kind of the biggest obstacles right now. And then even more so, we're hearing more about, well, I'd really love an operator that is a little bit more flexible for me to have time at home. And, how can we adapt a little bit to change scheduling or even conversation of what flexibility looks like to each individual person for this type of position? So those are a little bit of the challenges.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, and it's funny, recently going through that relocation myself from Boston to upstate New York, and definitely understand how that can re you got to reassess of what that can look like if someone's relocating, and that difference in salary to be to the local market there. Um,
Yeah, and even like, do you have kids? Are you selling a house? Are we changing schools? How old are your kids? There's so much more it's a complete lifestyle change, and relocating is scary because you're going to a new place. You don't know anybody. You don't know if you're going to really love it. There's so much of it. It's a very scary choice, but it's something that we try to keep as top of mind with our candidates if we are relocating them. Fly out there a bunch, go visit, make sure you love it, spend some time there. And we're equally doing that with the operator of, hey, we need to make sure that this feels right, or it's going to blow up in our face.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is such a big decision. And I think spending time there and kind of getting a lay of the land and like seeing if they could see themselves living there. And, I recently heard that there's like three things that are just give the most change in someone's life, and job changes and moves are two of those. Don't ask me the third because I can't quite recall that right now, but
Mhm.
it's pretty amazing, all that kind of entails there. And so I do have a
Yeah.
more personal question here for you, Katie. So you're obviously good at what you do, winning pace setter for the last 3 years in a row. Don't want to jinx it on the fourth, but like how do you balance life, and how do you balance like life and work? Because I know you have young kids. Like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I was very fortunate, coming into this, was a very weird time in my life. COVID had just happened. I lost my job. Well, originally I quit my job. I was doing sales and marketing for a lease up community here in my hometown. And I resigned. Lease up is a lot of hours. I had a 8-month-old son, and I was like, this is not the life I want anymore, and that was a scary time because I had loved senior living for so long. And it was, putting in 13-hour days, missing bath time and bedtime, and I just wasn't going to do it anymore. So I quit my job and started working at a preschool. And which is, I mean, very different for me. If you ask any of my family members, they're like, yeah, that was bizarre. But so I joined the preschool, and then COVID happened. So we shut down. And so for the first time in my life, I was without a job, a stay-at-home mom, and pregnant with my second kid. And I was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, So luckily, Max McNamara, who's our CEO of our company, he randomly messaged me on LinkedIn and is like, what have you been up to? And I'm like, just changing diapers, living the dream over here. And I met up with him at our office in Laguna, and I spoke to him in Gaston, and I was like, okay, I feel like I could have a balance doing this. And I feel like I could do both. I would get to work from home, work remote, and still have, my kids around and things like that. I just got to be strategic about timing when I get on the calls and things like that. So, balancing, I would say, it's a give and a take, right? And it definitely are moments where I'm like, I really wish I could turn it all off and just be very present with my kids. But recruiting is also, if you're not on the phone, you're not making money. And if you're not making placements, you're not making money. And so it is definitely a balance of making sure that I'm very present in their lives and, scheduling my time appropriately, and also really grinding and working hard at work. So, I think balance and flexibility is different for every single person, but I'm very lucky in that all of us, all the partners, the CEO, everybody, I mean, we all have really young kids. And so we all understand it, and we all want the same thing, which is more time with our family and also providing for our family.
I love that. Yeah, that's what it's all about too at the end of the day too. And I
Mhm.
applaud you for having the social awareness to, quit that job and try and like be more present at home, because I think too many people at times aren't socially aware about that and just kind of get caught in the rat race, and just keep it going as they don't see any other options. So, I applaud you from afar here on the other side of the coast here. Um,
Thank you. I don't think Austin was too stoked when I was like, hey, I just quit my job. He's like, a what?
yeah, yeah.
But, it happens.
And now
Yeah.
you just pay it back to him by taking him off the internet whenever you please. So,
Yeah, exactly. I'm
yeah,
like, you're sucking up too much Wi-Fi off.
exactly. And so my last question here for you, Katie, if you were to just give other senior living providers 3 guiding principles as we look through the rest of the year, what would you say?
Ooh, 3 guiding principles. I think number 1 would be to think outside the box a little bit on people, on candidates. Um, Having a foundation of skill set, but being able to coach to or teach the rest, I think is pretty important. The other guiding principle I would say is act fast. It is definitely a candidate market. We're seeing a lot of changes with candidates, and I mean, they'll go for another job for 5,000 more. It just depends upon what is going on currently with their team and the culture of the company and the vision for the company. And my last would be have more open conversations with your people. Understand them as a person that works for your team and your company that supports your residents. Understand them, what they want for their future, how they want their career to pan out over the next 5-10 years, their goals. Get to know them, a little bit more personally, of their kids, their life, their family, whatever it might be, to then continue to support them. And that will, you know, retain them, first of all, as an individual in your company, but it also then establishes I've got your back. I'm not just going to leave you hanging. I'm not just going to go and leave for 5,000 more. And I think the more that we can be in touch with our people that work for us and that support our residents and our other team members, it will continue to propel all companies in their vision of what they want, because that person is so bought in and they're along for the ride. and the long haul.
I love that. Awesome. Well, Katie, I know this has been a great conversation that I know our listeners will get a lot out of. So I appreciate you for taking the time here today to just share all this knowledge with us, and best of luck winning Pace Setter this year.
Yes, I hope so, because it's Costa Rica next year. So
Ooh,
that'll be fun.
that'll be fun. That'll be a good time.
I've never been, so I
I've
would
never
love to
been.
go there. But yeah, but I wanted to say thank you for having me and having the conversation. And yeah, it was fun.
If you'd like to know when we post the next episode, make sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. If you're interested in how Eversound can help improve the quality of life in your community, find out more at eversoundhq.com.